Quite frankly, if anybody thinks in South Africa that you can take the land without compensation, you're living in a dream. Let me put it quite frankly to you. If you want to start a civil war in South Africa, do that. Do that. And I told you before, I told you before, that don't misjudge.
It's decidedly
what are you raising, honorable member?
on a point of order.
On which rule, honorable member?
The rule that establishes point of order, you know what is the rule. But the point of order is, he can't stand there and threaten civil war for a radical program of land occupation. It's not parliamentary to threaten civil war. If you want civil war, Chief, don't threaten it there.
Thank you. I think honorable
You must never
member.
threaten civil war. You know nothing about war.
Honorable
and you
member,
must
thank you.
never,
Your
ever
point has
threaten
been
war
made.
in
Thank
this
you.
particular parliament. Please.
Thank you.
Let I put it quite frankly. If anybody thinks in South Africa that you can take the land without compensation, you're living in a dream. Let me put it quite frankly to you. If you want to start a civil war in South Africa, do that. Do that. And I told you before, I told you before, that don't misjudge.
It's decidedly
What are you raising, honorable member?
on a point of order.
On which rule, honorable member?
The rule that establishes point of order, you know what is the rule. But the point of order is, he can't stand there and threaten civil war for a radical program of land occupation. It's not parliamentary to threaten civil war. If you want civil war, Chief, don't threaten it there.
Thank you. I think honorable
You must never
member.
threaten civil war. You know nothing about war.
Honorable
and you
member,
must
thank you.
never,
Your
ever
point has
threaten
been
war
made.
in
Thank
this
you.
particular parliament. Please.
Thank you.
As follows, President Jacob Zuma first mentioning the expropriation of land in his opening of Parliament speech, but last week was the first time he called for a change in the law. The ANC also finds itself under pressure from, the radical economic freedom fighters led by Julius Malema, who've been travelling the country urging black South Africans to take back land from what they termed white invaders. He told Parliament his party wanted to unite black people in South Africa to expropriate land without compensation. Now, to start off this discussion, we are joined in our Pretoria studio by the Boer Afrikaner Volksraad, Andries Breitenbach. He is the group's chairperson. Mr. Breitenbach, a very good morning to you, and thank you for being with us here on Newsroom.
Thank you and good morning.
Mr. Breitenbach, declaration of war. Very strong words that your organization has used when talking about the land issue. Just tell us what your thinking is with regards to this.
Well, what we say, and I think we should take note, it's not us who are declaring war. The situation is that when one nation or state appropriates another people's land, it usually and inevitably results in armed conflict.
The land belongs to you. This is your land. Bo, hanyane hanyane. Abar matisa maponesa rabale. Rabale ba tsanyana 2 minutes re a khutlela. E tla go fitla the day the police are tired, then we settle forever. That land belongs to us. That land must be occupied.
So it would be a terrible step to take. And one of the points I make in the book is that South Africa is not like Zimbabwe. It cannot do the same things as
So
Zimbabwe.
you don't see South Africa going the same way as Zimbabwe?
Well, it can't, you see, for two reasons. When the crisis hit Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe is a fundamentally rural country, two relatively small cities, Bulawayo and Harare. And when things got really hard, most people in those cities could, if absolutely necessary, go back to their families in the rural areas and scratch some sort of living with a couple of chickens and mealies and so forth. Very poor, semi-starvation, but that's what they could do. Secondly, they could, in their millions, come here. Now, if we have the same sort of crisis here, there's no way, I mean, South Africa is much more urbanized, there's no way that black urban South Africans are going back to the countryside. I mean, it is not going to happen. And secondly, there's nowhere south to go. There's only Antarctica.
Just the ocean.
So here you are, it's all locked in, okay? And the safety valves which existed in the case of Zimbabwe do not exist. So if anyone wants to start down that route, I'm afraid they will very, very quickly find an utterly explosive situation because, you know, you would get major riots and you would get all sorts of, you know, I mean, look, if you did here what Mugabe did in Zimbabwe, then very quickly you would not be able to feed the cities. Think about that. You'd get food riots, which would quickly become xenophobic riots. Mm-hmm. I mean, that happens in urban South Africa. Whenever you get violent protest, it very quickly crumbles down into xenophobia, whatever the initial cause. And I'm sure it would happen again.